Good day, everyone, and I'm back again. Welcome to Clara's Creation Story Time. As being kids, we enjoy stories, and here I have brought a story for you: The Adventure of Gulliver. Gulliver. Gulliver Travel is an interesting book written by a well-known English writer, Jonathan Swift, in which he describes the voyage of Gulliver to various lands like Lilliput and Brobdingnag. Though the character of Gulliver and these strange sounding lands are imaginary, Gulliver experiences and adventures are written well by this writer. Gulliver, the story tells us, worked as a surgeon on ship. As such, he made several voyages. In May 1699, he sailed on the ship the Antelope. On the return of the journey, in November, a violent storm sank the ship, and Gulliver swam his life. Late evening, he found himself marooned on a strange land. Weak and exhausted, he slept for 9 hours, and when it was daylight, he was awake. Let us see what happens in his own words. The Adventure of Gulliver. I tried to get up from the ground, but I couldn't move. I was lying on my back. Then I found my arms, feet were held down on the ground with strings. That is, Gulliver was tied up by strings by the Lilliputs. My hair, which was long, was held down in the same way. Thousands of strings passed across my body so that I couldn't move any part of it, but could only lie there on my back looking up at the sky. In a little time, I left something alive move on my foot, and then it came over my body and then right up to my face. Turning my eyes down as much as I could, I saw a man. He was half a foot high, and they were the Lilliputs. By his dress, he seemed to be a soldier, and there came 40 more following him. There was such much surprise that I gave a great cry. Then all ran back in great fear, and, as I was told later, some of them hurt in jumping down from my side on the ground. So here in this part we see that Gulliver is already in the lands or the city of Lilliputians. Gulliver attempts to pull himself free. Here you can see Gulliver is trying to rescue himself, but he fails. Let's hear this part of the story in Gulliver's own words. After pulling very hard, I got up. One arm from the ground also raised my head. This gave me great pain, for many of the hairs were pulled. I put out my hand to catch some of the little men, but they ran away. Before I could close my hand on them, then I heard a noise and felt a pricking in my hand, like that of thousands of needles. All over his body, you can see the Lilliputs are walking. I found they were shooting arrows at me. I was afraid for my eyes. I put my hand over my face. After this, I thought that the wisest thing to do was to lie quiet till night. I thought then my hand will be free. I could quickly set free to the rest of my body. Soon a platform was raised. An important looking man gave long speech. From his gestures, I guessed he was trying to tell me that he would not harm me if I did as he told me. I too replied in gesture, and I would remain quiet as I told him I was hungry. So here you see Gulliver is asking for food. He is hungry. Gulliver eats a giant meal. Now Lilliputians are small people, and Gulliver is a normal man. Let's see and hear the story in his own words. At once 100 of men climbed up onto my body and marched up to my mouth, carrying food. The bread was so small as bullet, so I ate 3 loaves at a time. Cries of surprise came from the Lilliputans. I should eat so quickly and that too so much. The Lilliputans were no longer afraid of me. They danced on my body, they ran to and fro. I could have caught at least 40 of them with my hand and thrown them down, but I remembered my promise to remain quiet. Indeed, I was surprised at their bravery, for I must have seemed great giant of the world to them. Later, I was taken to the city where the king lived. So Gulliver is now going to meet the king. A cart was brought joining many carts. 900 men worked for making that, and they worked for 3 hours to put me on the cart, which was drawn by 1500 of the finest horses. The city was just half a mile, but the journey took almost full day. Gulliver will now get a new home. You can see Gulliver's home. Let's look into this part of the story and hear it from Gulliver's mouth. The king came out to meet me. He came near me and looked at me, but it was not a thought of safe for him to climb up on me. At the place where the cart was stopped, there was an old church. It was the largest building in the whole country. For certain reason, it had not been used as a church for many years. It had now been ready for me to use as my house. The great door on the north was 4 feet high and 2 feet wide, so I could go in by going down on my hand. One of the feet was set in a great ring on the end of many strong strings, so that I could not get away. The only walk some distance outside the door. The country outside looked like a garden. You can see the scenery out here, how the church looks like, which is going to be Gulliver's house now. After some days, the king and his people were convinced that I would not harm them, so they agreed to keep certain orders of the king, and I was allowed to move around in the city. Gulliver now is going to visit the queen. Here he's going to come to visit the queen. He's allowed to move free. As soon as I was free, I asked if I might see the city. The king was pleased to let me do this. Orders were given to all people to remain in their houses. Then I stopped over the wall and I went very carefully along the largest street. All the windows were full of faces looking at me. You can see the people looking at Gulliver. And a large number of people were standing on the top of the house. The king's house was just a place where two great streets met. There was a beautiful garden all around. Lying down in the garden, I put my eyes to the window. The rooms were very beautiful. In one room, I saw the queen and the young princess. They were greatly pleased by my visit. If you like the story, do share and subscribe the channel.